Greetings and welcome. My name is Mike Bankhead. I am your host. I am a bass player and songwriter from the Gem City, Dayton, Ohio. And I know this podcast has been away with technical issues for a few weeks, but I am back. And my guest on this episode is music journalist extraordinaire Taylor Ruckle. We are talking about our favorite albums from the second quarter of 2023. So buckle up and get ready for some great music that you might not be familiar with on the You Could Be My Aramis podcast. This episode is brought to you by We Met in Paris, my new duo, and our first single, Mont Blanc Massif, which is streaming everywhere as of yesterday. Go listen to it. Here's the conversation. It's July 5th, Taylor. That means the second quarter's over, which means we're talking again.
Has it only been one quarter? Because with the volume of records that have come out, it feels like we need a whole album of the year show just for the last 3 months.
You know, it does feel that way, and I have actually seen a few outlets writing best of the first half articles.
Yeah.
Which is, I think that is an indicator that we're getting old, that time goes faster. But without further delay, let's give the listeners 10 records that they want to go hear. You're first.
I would love to. So, my first pick is Coast to Coast by Pearl and the Oysters. And this is this very smooth, jazzy, French-American indie pop duo who I had never heard of before this record came out. They're from France, they moved to Florida, and the making of this record, they moved from Florida to California, hence the title Coast to Coast. Musically, this is not the kind of thing I gravitate toward usually, but I ended up seeing them at Comet Ping Pong, and they put on a really good show. Their singer, Juliet Pearl Davis, also plays the omnichord and the flute and about 500,000 effects pedals. And so you get this really like retro, spacey, atmospheric pop sound. There's a great review at Post Trash by the writer Zach Mercado, who points to the influence of recent stuff like chill wave music, but also older influences like Stereolab and Yellow Magic Orchestra. He's thought a lot more about it than I have. The best way I can think to describe this record is that it's kind of the perfect post-show hangover record. It's just really pleasant, really gentle. It's nice to have on in the background while you're making coffee after being out late. And it's been a record that I find myself coming back to way more than I expected.
All right. That's a group that I've never heard of, and I love it when you give me groups I've never heard of. It means I have research to do and I have something new to listen to. I'll go quiet on my first one then too. Kara Jackson, a record called Why Does the Earth Give Us People to Love?
Yes, indeed.
You're an industry guy, so you probably already know this one, but she is a former poet laureate student type person, which means basically she knows how to write words. But this record shows that she also knows how to play an instrument. It's her and her guitar. For the most part, there are some other instruments. I don't think she's playing the other ones on this one. But it's a bunch of kind of sad songs and folk singer-songwritery genre. But she's a good storyteller and a good songwriter. And I am looking forward to seeing what she does next. Just the title kind of tells you about how sad it is. The question, why does the earth give us people to love, is just a plaintive question in and of itself.
Big question. Yeah, I have heard this record. It's one of those that I have to check out because the, critical discourse around it crosses my path. And I really like this record. I think she's somebody I had heard about before this came out. And so it was kind of there's a little bit of familiarity there. And it's a really promising record and a really great listen. And it's something that I haven't spent a ton of time with since it came out, but absolutely deserves the attention it was getting.
Please continue with your number two.
My number two is a very personal pick. It's called Victorian Era / Bedroom Pomp by an artist called One's a Crowd. This is an artist who's very near and dear to my heart. One's a Crowd is the solo project of Seth Flynn, who is also the lead singer and guitarist from the Northern Virginia indie rock band The Dusk Whales, who I've been following since I was in high school, which is also when they were in high school. They've been around for the last decade or so, making very fun psychedelic pop in the model of the great British invasion bands of the 60s. They're the band when I came home from college. I was seeing, at the brewery every couple weeks and at Jam and Java in Vienna and all the local venues. One of the best local live bands around here. Just a great time to see. And this solo record kind of strips down their whole sound to the studs. It's just Seth and these very flowery chord progressions on acoustic guitar, these huge stacks of angelic vocal harmonies. That's all. Totally minimalist sound. And it makes for what I think is probably one of the prettiest records of the year. My cute little music journalist thing to say about this is that the title Victorian era bedroom pomp gives me the impression of this kind of old-fashioned but very ornate craftsmanship, like something really beautiful and intricate and handmade. I think you can hear that in the record too. It's like lace work, the way it's just kind of elegant and simple on the surface, but also like painstakingly detailed. And you got to hear this record. The song I got to recommend to everybody is called Before the Earth Holds Me Too Close, and it's about a minute and a half long, and it's maybe the prettiest song of the year.
Is Seth the songwriter in his other band?
I believe they sort of collaborate. I think it's a fairly democratic trio. So, they all sing harmonies. Some of them even take lead on various songs. But yeah, I do think the songwriting is a group effort.
All right, so this is more like an outlet for him to say what he wants to say without outside influence. That's always interesting when somebody in a band steps out on their own like that.
Definitely. I should mention this is his second solo record, and the record before this one is called Writing Infinity, and that record is also excellent. So there's a little bit of a back catalog too if you like this and you want to go back and find some more of it. Also, the Dusk Whales have put out like 4 LPs, and they're very solid. So big recommend.
That is a public service to all of us, and I thank you. I'll go solo artist for my next one. It's Joy Elotikun's latest. It's called Proof of Life. I think by now, Joy's been around long enough that if you've heard of this artist, you know what it is they do, what it is she does. If you haven't, kind of folky, roots rocky, but also in a soulful way. Just more really good songs. It feels like a lot of them are taken from her own life. Now, I don't know that to be a fact, but it just feels like a lot of them are taken from her own life. I think my favorite ones in the record so far are Somebody Like Me and the opening one, Keeping the Light On, is pretty awesome as well. But there's nothing on the record that I don't like. And if you are into, again, singer, songwriter-y type people, go get this one.
So I'm among the small group of people who have heard of this artist and have not yet gotten around to listening and finding out what the story is. So I am very excited to hear that there's a new record. I'm looking at the features on this album, the collabs, and I'm thinking, okay, yeah, Chris Stapleton, looks like Noah Kahan, I don't know how you pronounce his name. These are people I've heard of and I know kind of what they're about. Manchester Orchestra has a song collab on this record. What's with that? That is a band that I do not expect to see kind of working in this sonic milieu. But
so the advantage of not reading anything about it and just like my uncle, who for some reason is always finding cool stuff even though he's in his 70s, is like, hey, do you like Joy Elotikun? And I'm like, yes. I haven't heard the new thing yet.
Okay.
Let me go listen to the new thing. So I didn't even know she had this out. So my uncle mentioned her, and I figured that the reason he mentioned it is he must have stumbled across it and really dug it. So I just went straight to the Bandcamp and listened to the record without reading anything about it. So I did not know about all of these collabs, and that is just kind of cool.
Yeah, for a little bit of reference, Manchester Orchestra is currently touring with Jimmy Eat World, so that's why I was a little bit like they're more from that kind of world, and I'm like, whoa, that's a really interesting crossover there. So I was already this is an artist that I've heard enough about to know that I need to you know get get on it, get on the record, and that's just another thing where I'm like, oh, I need to know what's going on there.
That's what happens when you talk when you're on mute. It is. Let's go to the next one.
All right, my next pick is going to be a record called Beloved Paradise Jazz by McKinley Dixon. That's beloved exclamation point, paradise exclamation point, jazz exclamation point, question mark. McKinley Dixon is a rapper slash producer slash band leader who's currently based in Chicago, but until recently was in Richmond, Virginia, which is how I first heard about him. The title of this record, of course, references three Toni Morrison novels, and this record is his first release since he finished his own trilogy of albums that was meant to kind of parallel Toni Morrison's Dante-esque trilogy, being Beloved, Paradise, and Jazz. And I hope that's not too confusing. But the important thing is that McKinley Dixon is this artist who has very high literary ambitions, which are matched by his way with words and his ability to assemble super unique, very grandiose instrumentals with jazz and orchestral ensembles. And this record is a really compact, distilled version of that. It's a real like summing up of everything he's been about to this point, and bringing it all together in a really, really impactful set. I have to shout out the first track on this record, which is just the great writer Hanif Abdurraqib reading Toni Morrison over an instrumental. It's a very cool feature to have, and the rest of the features on this record also great. But yeah, this is an artist I've been excited about for the last few years, and had really high expectations for this record based on the past work, and they were met and exceeded. Excellent work.
Fellow Ohioan Hanif Abdurraqib.
Yes, of course. How could I forget?
Lives down the road in Columbus. I'd like to remark that you have a penchant for picking albums with like slashes and punctuation in the title. We've already got two on this one, and then the Eve Tumor record from the last conversation. Does this weird characters and titles just kind of grab your attention? Is that?
I guess it must. I'm looking at my list now. Coast to Coast, I didn't explain, also has a numeral 2 in the title.
Of course it does.
So I'm 3 for 5 on records that have some bizarre structural thing going on. Yeah, I guess that's the trick, right? If you're a music writer and you see album titles all day, the one that has the punctuation jumps out to you. I didn't actually. This is funny. I haven't heard the new Jessie Ware record, but that's another one that's like that exclamation point feels good exclamation point. And I haven't heard it, but every time I see that title, I'm like, that seems like something I should be into.
Just based on the title, it does.
Exactly.
It just feels like too much to me.
I'm a lot. I know I'm a lot to handle, Mike.
Yeah, you can be. My next one is for people that just kind of want to lay back and listen to a genius songwriter do the thing. It's Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds, his new record, Council Skies. He's on the road right now with Garbage and Metric, which is a pretty good 3-band bill. They came to Ohio, but they're playing these big amphitheater places, and I don't like going to shows in big venues, so it's not for me. But they were playing like small clubs, I'd be there. But yeah, there's no way you could get all three of those bands into a small club. It's Noel Gallagher doing more of what he does. The songcraft, it's exquisite as far as the way that the songs are written. The delivery is exquisite. Like, it's well performed, it's well produced. It's less rocky than any of the Oasis stuff. He's using some more instrumentation. I shouldn't say any of the Oasis stuff. There's plenty of Oasis stuff with string sections and stuff on it. If you just want to listen to really well crafted songs, but don't want to have your heart broken by Jason Isbell, then go listen to the new Noel Gallagher's High Flying Birds record. There's my pitch.
That's cool. I actually saw. I totally resonate with what you're seeing about venues, because I saw Noel Gallagher and his High Flying Birds or so years ago now at the Anthem in Washington D.C. on the Wharf, which is our like kind of too big to have a good time, but not so big that it's like a stadium kind of venue. And boy, it was one of the worst live show experiences. They had the whole general admission floor set up with like ticketed numbered seats,
Oh
which
no.
yeah, terrible. And you know, patrolling up and down the aisles and the whole deal. And everybody was standing up anyway because you're at floor level, and you know, the stage is right there. And he played, you know, the new stuff. It was perfectly fine as a performance, and then I just got to see him give the most half-hearted "Don't Look Back in Anger" you've ever heard in your life. Just like, you know, that thing that people do when they have a hit song where they say, all right, now everybody sing my hit song for me because I can't be bothered because I'm so over myself.
You know, that's kind of funny because there are videos of him doing that online the last couple of years, and I guess it depends on the night because sometimes he seems like he's really feeling it,
I guess it must.
and maybe it's also the size of the crowd and how much they're into it. Uh, Honestly, though, if you have something like that in your career, you're closing with that every night, aren't you? I mean,
Oh, sure.
that's
Yeah, I'm
your.
sure. Don't get me wrong. I'd be sick of it too.
I mean, that's got to be your set closer because everybody knows it, everybody loves it, and it's also really a good song.
You
So
either do that last or you do the major flex where you do that first and you say, now that that's out of the way, let's really,
yeah,
you know,
here's the new stuff.
yeah.
Yeah, I understand. You know what, I would be interested in seeing how the things from this album fits into the set alongside some of the older things. And I've only listened to one of the other High Flying Birds records, and I think this one's better. Uh,
Okay.
but yeah, I if you like his writing and if you are familiar with his career, you are familiar with what his songs sound like, you'll like this record. I think that's yeah.
Sounds good. When are we going to talk about Bully, Mike? When are we going to talk about Bully?
I mean, now this is the only one on our list that we both had, and it's no longer on my list because I know you were going to talk about it, but it
Oh,
was.
so you've shuffled it off and now it falls to me.
Yeah, it's one of my honorable mentions now. I have three honorable mentions, and this is one of them. But I thought it was a good record, uh, and obviously you do too. So tell us why.
Yeah, I very nearly did the same move, but now I'm glad I didn't because then neither of us would have talked about it. Yeah, Lucky for You by Bully is one of my picks. And what can I say about this? It's the rock record of the summer. It is. Bully is the project of Alicia Bonanno, who's a singer-songwriter and producer based out of Nashville. I didn't realize until recently, but she produced Bleed Out, the Mountain Goats album from last year I was such a fan of. I didn't realize that at the time. I didn't realize that when I got into the Bully record, and then recently I was looking back and realizing, oh, that was her? Okay. It makes perfect sense. You know, that record rocks, this album rocks. 90s influenced, distorted guitar driven pop songs. Of all the records I'm talking about today, this was the one I was most certain you would love. It's a classic case of the words and the music being in tension at times because the songs are very catchy, very upbeat, sun drenched, and they were mostly inspired by her beloved dog who passed away, which is very sad. It's the kind of record I had this on at a friend's apartment as we were like, you know, getting ready to go to the pool, and the sound is perfect for that. But then it's up on Apple Music on the TV, and the lyrics are scrolling by, and you stop and you look, and it's just devastating. It's just like, oh no. Very powerfully written, very well done, heartfelt album, and also it doesn't sound out of place by the pool. What do you think of this? What do you have to say about Bully?
I didn't want to like it because a lot of people like it,
Yeah, I hear you.
and I couldn't help it. It's just really good.
Yeah,
Um, it sounds good. I wish it. You know what? I wish it was actually a little longer.
really.
I get limiting it to 10 songs, but I maybe there was just nothing else in the tank after this one. I think it would be fun to go see these songs live. I wonder what her touring band looks like.
Yeah, I wonder that too. I know that Bully was a band before it was a solo project. It's one of those cases where people sort of leave one by one, and the last person standing says, "Well, I'm still going to be Bully." Also, I believe she's been touring with Pixies, which would be just an amazing kind of show to see. Um, and yeah, I bet this goes really hard live. I went back in preparation for the new record and listened to her last record, which was called Sugar Egg in 2020, which at the time got a lot of attention from people who I trust and respect their opinions, but I never picked it up. I finally revisited that record. That record's also great. So there's a lot to get into here.
I'm going to say that this Bully record can't be the rock record of the summer, because the rock record of the summer is The Perfume of Decay by Tiger Cub, which is my next record. This is a band from the UK. It is big riffs and even more 90s sounding than Bully. Bully sounds 90s-ish, but more towards the garagey side, whereas Tiger Cub sounds 90s-ish, but more towards the Billy Corgan's been stacking guitar tracks again side. Like it's and not nearly as many guitar tracks as on an old Pumpkins record, so don't be too concerned about it being that overproduced. But it's just big, and it's what I think a rock record should sound like, and I don't know that we're getting a lot of this out of the United States these days. But between like these guys and Royal Blood, and there's another couple of bands from the Isles that I've heard recently that are just like loud, and I'm okay with that. I don't remember how I found out about this band or how it ended up on my list, and I'm glad it's not one of the ones I didn't get to before we had this conversation, because then I would be sad. But I'm curious to see what this group does next, and if they're on the road. There was only like, I think, one song that wasn't like super big, and it reminded me of Something in the Way, just like some the way they treated the
you mean Nirvana?
Yeah. I mean Nirvana. The way they treated the guitar tone, and I'm not talking about the effect, because obviously on that the original track there's an effect on the guitar.
Okay.
You'll have to listen to the record to see what I'm saying.
This is one of my favorite phenomena, is when I hear about a band and the name does not ring a bell at all, and I go and look them up, and they've got like 500,000 monthly listeners on streaming, and it's
right?
Like, okay,
it's
all
like,
right, let's
which
go.
Obviously that's not the be all and end all, but
no,
this album's good. And again, I don't remember who told me about it or how it ended up on my listen list. I read something somewhere. My favorite ones on this one were Shadowgraph, that's near the end of the record, Swoon, which they say a lot in that song. I guess if you're going to call it that, you have to say that. And then You're My Dopamine. Those are my favorite ones. The Dark Below, which is the title track. Hold up, no, it wasn't. But The Dark Below was really good. The Perfume of Decay, that's the title track. I enjoyed it. And this, again, I wish I remembered who told me about this band, because I would like to thank them, but I can't. So sorry, whoever you were.
Well, I'm glad that you were that recommendation for me, because if I heard the title The Perfume of Decay, I'd think this was like a heavy metal record that maybe isn't necessarily my thing. But
it isn't metal, and I mean, there's some metal that I have liked in the past. I'm not listening to that music right now, but now this is big and loud, but it doesn't feel like a metal record to me. So
cool. Shall I drop my last pick?
You shall.
All right, my fifth record is Good Living Is Coming For You by Sweeping Promises, which is a record I could talk at length about. It's a record I've written at length about. You can go to Paste Magazine and read my review of this record. It's the longest thing I've written since I was in college about one album. Sweeping Promises is one of my favorite bands I've gotten into through writing about music. I'll just say that right off the top. They're a post-punk band currently based out of Lawrence, Kansas. When I first heard about them, they had released their debut record, Hunger for a Way Out, which they recorded in an empty laboratory space in Boston with 40-foot concrete ceilings, using very intentionally lo-fi recording and mixing techniques on these very, very catchy, very groovy kind of poppy post-punk songs. And so the combination of the reverb and the weird EQ and the effects gave them this really surreal, really stylized, honestly kind of wacky sound. And the new record is more of that, but I think with more pointed songwriting. The album title alludes to, a lot about critiquing and coping with toxic American hustle culture. Good Living Is Coming For You is kind of foreboding in a way, more so than, encouraging. It just sort of echoes throughout this record. There's all these kinds of phrases like that that'll hit you one way the first time you hear it, and then you stop and think about it for a minute and you go, I don't know I don't know if I like that actually. um, and so, it's a lot about trying to avoid falling prey to this very, well, let me back up. It's something that hit me very personally as I'm kind of trying to evaluate the place that things like work occupy in my life, trying to avoid falling prey to this very pervasive idea that you have to be always on the grind or you're wasting time, which is pretty destructive and not true. Also, I should just say that the first song, Eraser, is their catchiest, punchiest song ever. So you should probably just ignore all of my philosophizing and hit play and have a good time with it, because this band rocks. It doesn't sound like anything. It doesn't sound like anything anybody would intentionally try to make, and that's what I love about it.
Congratulations, by the way, on getting an article in Paste.
Thank you for that.
That's a pretty cool publication. I'll be linking to that in the show notes, along with all of the albums that we've talked about, as I generally tend to do that, so that folks can find them on one easy click. We're going to go rock and roll for my last one, too. Mine is a band called Pony, and the record's called Velveteen.
Yes.
And I will say that if you like early Charlie Bliss, this record is for you. It is loud, bright, power poppy rock and roll with a lead singer that sounds a lot like Eva Hendricks from Charlie Bliss sometimes. And it's a fun listen. It's not as heavy as some of the other records I've recommended, looking at you, Joy, and Kara. But it's a fun listen if you like catchy rock and roll. Seems like you are familiar with Pony already.
This is a record that I've heard recommended a lot, and I just haven't looked into. And the minute you say early Charlie Bliss, it's like, all right, well, that's my afternoon now. That's what I'm doing. I have one of my most excited, online record shopping finds was when I saw that the record store, like a few miles down the road, had a copy of the Charlie Bliss Soft Serve EP, and that's one of my favorite now 7 inches that I have. That's everything I want to be about. I'm all over this. I'm there. I'm there right now.
I've got that EP too. I picked it up at one of their shows a long time ago. So what are some of the almosts for you? I mentioned Bully is on my almost. What are some of the things that were on your almost made it but didn't quite list?
Oh, there's so many this quarter. It was really hard to pick. I'm a big fan of Billy Woods, and I think the new collab album with Kenny Siegel, Maps, was excellent. That was more just me not wanting to bring another Billy Woods record, because you know how I feel about Billy Woods.
I do.
But that record rules. I got more into the new AJJ record than I thought I would. It's called Disposable Everything. This is a band I was into in college and sort of, stopped paying attention to, and they have kept being great. I saw them at 930 Club, and they put on a shockingly amazing show. What else? I mean, everybody's talking about the new Military Gun record, Life Under the Gun. That record's great. If you've ever, been into Fugazi or what have you, you will love that record. There's that Bar Italia record. That's pretty good. I thought that was neat.
That was on my list. I didn't get to it.
It's good. My thing about that's I don't know how other people would say it, but to me, it's almost like spiritually, attitude-wise, it's almost got kind of a trip-hop vibe to it, just in the way it's just sort of cool and detached, and it has that kind of distance to it. So I like that vibe. That's not one that's as universally beloved as some of the others on our lists, but I think it's kind of neat.
I think it's funny when you say everybody's talking about on an album I've never heard of, but I will go back and write that down. It seems like you had more. Go ahead.
No, I just have to shout out Korn by Gabbo, who is a very, very good alternative folk artist from DC. And they made this record that has a lot of really cool, kind of freak folk influences, drawing on like Animal Collective and stuff, weird effect swells and samples and things. Big fan of that record. That's the Super Violet, Infinite Spring, fun, power poppy kind of singer songwriter record.
I have to write that down. Hang on. This is so here are some of the things I did not get to from some pretty well-known artists. It just tells you how full this quarter was. There's new records from Queens of the Stone Age, the Boo Radleys, Rival Sons, Rancid, Ben Harper, Susanna Hoffs, Michelle Indigiocello, and Louise Post. And I really wanted to get that Louise Post record to listen because I like everything she's ever done.
I know how you feel about Louise Post. Yeah.
But it's I'll get to it. I just didn't get to it for this. Some of the records I got to, I've heard a lot of people say that the new Foo Fighters record is like their best one since their third record. Didn't do much for me. I mean, I gave it a shot. Didn't do much for me. Apparently, Feeble Little Horse is like the indie darling of the moment.
People love this band. I haven't heard it yet. I haven't heard it.
Didn't do it for me. And same thing with Wednesday. It was okay. I was just like, it's okay.
That's one of those where it's like, I see why people like this, but I'm not. It's not for me.
Ben Folds put out his first record in like 7 or 8 years.
Really?
It's not awful. It didn't make my honorable mention list, but I was like, all right, welcome back, So other than the Bully record, Jason Isbell's record, Weather Bangs, is on my honorable mention list. I think he's one of our greatest living songwriters. And it's just really good lyrics and storytelling songs. It's more of what he does. So if you like what he does, you'll like this record. And if you don't, you won't. And the other record on my honorable mention list is by an artist that is somebody I personally know, and she was on my podcast a few months ago teasing this release. Is Bridget Boyle with her record Heartbreak Residue. Catchy songs, singer-songwriter, but more full instrumentation, so leaning in a kind of a pop direction, but like not in the box, if you know what I'm saying. Like there's actual people playing instruments on this. Catchy songs. Her dad was an engineer and producer, so she grew up in the industry. So this should tell you that it's just really well produced and it sounds good. Like this is a person that has been around music professionals for her entire life. So she knows what records are supposed to sound like when they're done right. And I thought it was great. I hope more people get ears on it. So yeah, Bridget Boyle, Heartbreak Residue. Listen to that one, Taylor. I think you'll dig that one.
I'll get on it.
But yeah, I'm in addition to the ones on I didn't get to this list, I've got a bunch that you mentioned that I haven't heard. So yeah, I have work to do, and that's even before I get on the massive quarter three list. We have just a couple minutes. Is there anything coming in quarter three that you're looking forward to particularly?
I haven't been keeping a very close eye on what's coming, but I do have to say that the new OC's record has me very excited. The first two singles have this very synth punk kind of feel to it, which I'm all about. It sounds like a bunch of records I listened to in 2020 and really liked, and I'm very excited to hear their take on that sound. So that would be my big one, but yeah, I'm sure there's a million things I just haven't even heard of.
That's another band I've never heard of. So here's some artists that I like that are putting that they say have new records coming in the third quarter. Guided by Voices, because of course they have a new record coming in the third quarter. Oh, by the way, have you heard about their two 40-year anniversary shows they're doing here?
No, I didn't. Actually, I'm so sorry. You
wouldn't be able to get in anyway.
I did hear about it, but it's one of those things I hear and I say, yeah, there's no way that's happening. So
right,
they had that's some crazy openers though. I heard.
Yeah, it's Built to Spill and Wednesday and somebody else really popular one night, and like Dinosaur Jr. the other night.
Yeah.
Look, if you're an indie rock giant and you're going to celebrate 40 years, why don't you just make other indie rock giants open for you?
Right. You get Built to Spill. You get Dinosaur Jr.
Yeah, I could have gone to that. They're like, you had to get tickets like immediately, but it's not like it was impossible. But I was like, man, do I want to, as much as I love this band, do I want to have Miller Lite thrown on me for 4 straight hours? I don't. Their fans have a reputation for being a little rowdy sometimes.
I've heard this, yeah.
They're old people, like by which I mean they are generally older than me. Like I would be a median age or trending toward younger age kind of my Voices fan. They get a little wild at the shows. Brad has a record coming. That's
I think Stone Gossard's in that band, and he's been in that. It's like the Stone Gossard side project since the '90s. Ohio's own Lydia Lovelace has a record coming in the third quarter. She left us from North Carolina, has since come back. Teenage Fan Club is back with a record coming.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. Ash, who I will never forgive for getting rid of Charlotte, but I still think they rock. Royal Blood has a record coming, and Rhiannon Giddens and Allison Russell will both have records coming. So, and I'm pretty sure there's more, but those are just some bands and artists that I already like that have stuff coming. So
we have our work cut out for us 3 months from now.
Yeah, but it'll be fun work, right?
Yes.
There are worse things to do. Do you have any closing comments before I turn the recording on?
No, just thanks so much for having me as always.
Yeah, this was fun. Thank you for making the time in your schedule.
Anytime.
I'd like to thank Taylor Ruckle once again for taking the time to talk to me and also taking the time to introduce me to some outstanding music. I really hope, dear listener, that you find something that you will enjoy. Also, thank you, dear listener, for being with me and sticking around, even though it's been a few weeks since I had a podcast episode up. I'm going to try to get the rest of them out to you a whole lot faster than this one made it to you. That is for sure. A friendly reminder that episode 106 of the You Could Be My Aramis podcast is brought to you by the brand new We Met in Paris single, Mont Blanc Massif. Please listen for it, stream it anywhere that you listen to music. I really hope you like the song. Have a great rest of your day.